Glad to see each and every one of you here this evening. Before we begin, we have some housekeeping business we need to do. This meeting of the Public Safety Committee is being conducted electronically pursuant to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order 16. I would ask for a motion that conducting the meeting electronically is necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare in light of the coronavirus. Do I have that motion?
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Motion made by Commissioner Gurley. Do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Serino. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Serino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon? Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen, for approving that. Before we begin the business of the evening, we now need to approve the minutes from our last meeting. Can I have someone to approve those minutes if we can?
Mr. Chairman, I've taken a couple of minutes and looked at those minutes. I find them to be in order and move that they be adopted as presented.
Okay, we have the motion to approve the minutes. We have a second.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Gurley, call the roll.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Serino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you. Well, before we get into the business, I want to remind everyone that we will have several budgets reviewed tonight. We'll be going over that. We'll try to keep it moving as quick as we can. Commissioner Serino has taken care of the commissioners on the committee up here. We have some snacks that he's brought along, and he thought the chairman needed extra energy tonight. So I've got a little bit of extra to go with that, so we'll be taking care of those things. First thing on the agenda, item 2, Judge Davenport will be going over her budget worksheet. Glad to have you with us, Judge.
I apologize for being so late submitting my budget, but I've had a rough winter and just started back to work. So usually
Might want to pull that mic down.
That's better. I normally just see if y'all have any questions about the budget that we've submitted. I come to you this year with a huge need, but also I think a solution. When you look at what we're proposing this year is another full-time magistrate, or more in our contract services. It's not on there, but we can trade that off for another 32 hours a week, maybe 40 hours, 40 weeks a year for contracted services for another magistrate. We absolutely need more clerical. And our solution is that we've understand that the school that's in our building, attached to our building, will no longer be utilized. And that Director Duke and I hope to be able to utilize that building for some intake and things that we need on the detention side, as well as we could have a hearing room in there as well. And we've been doing a lot of things by Zoom, as we all have, and we're going to continue to do a lot of our motions and reviewing of our children that we have to lay eyes on every few months. We're going to still be able to do that by Zoom. So that would utilize us a place there to have. Of course, we're going to have construction to make that feasible, and possibly deputies. Sheriff will put you on notice tonight, and maybe a machine for people to come in. So I want you to take a moment and look at what we're asking. Definitely one more clerical staff. I have a law clerk and I have 1 judicial assistant, and that's all, with 3 full-time of us, myself, 2 full-time magistrates and a part-time magistrate that works on Wednesdays. We also have been doing our Safe Baby Court that I do in this building every Wednesday morning because we don't have space in our building to do that. We have also been elected by the Supreme Court to bring an absolutely new program into the community. We're the only one in the state, and there's only 3 or 4 in the country that have the new program that we're going to have, and it's called the Family Preservation Court. We're not ready to start that yet, but we're going to. We've got, and it's 100% grant. It comes from federal funding, and so we're going to need some space for that somewhere, but that can always, again, be off-site somewhere. So there's a lot of growth, again, going on, but new programs that we're trying to enhance dealing with our families. And so when you look at this budget and the amount, just if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Commissioner Gurley?
Yes, what's the total increase?
Well, I did the numbers taken out, that full-time magistrate, and put in the contract services. We went from $840,318 to right at $1,037,000 with those 2 new positions. And that's a lot of salaries, but we can work on some contracted magistrates. And another thing, I have to at this point. I've been elected over 20 years and been on the bench almost 22 to the day in April. We need parity. There's 4 general sessions judges. I just told you we have 3. Their budget's $1 million or more, a little over $1 million more than ours is. You can't compare every program, but you can the salaries and the staff. I just want you to be thinking about that for me. Commissioner Phillips, did you have a question?
Yeah, I think Commissioner Gurley mentioned it. The budget increase this year over last year, bottom line is what, and how much of that total is for the new positions?
Well, I had agreed when I met with the mayor to take out the full-time and substitute it with the part-time magistrate. So I have those figures, if that helps. Well, it's still about the same. 90,000? No, it has to be more than that. I apologize. I thought I had the math done.
Numbers are right. It's around 203,000.
Okay, 230?
203,000 is what I calculated from the numbers you gave us.
203,000. Thank you.
Judge, did we not, on your budget, when we went over your budget, we went down to line item 355 under travel. You had 12,700. I had penciled in 9525.
That would be if we didn't get the full-time magistrate.
Okay.
Right, if they went back to the contract. We don't pay their memberships, their dues, and their travel, part-time magistrates.
Let me make one other comment, Mr. Chairman, if I may, where Judge Davenport was referring to having extra room and sharing that with Mrs. Duke. Some of you may not know that Mr. Michael Payne is retiring. He and his wife are retiring for the school that shares some of that space out there. So what our intent is to do is to take the classrooms. Judge, how many classrooms do you have? 4?
Never seen it. I've never walked in that building. I do not know what the structure is.
What we want to do is to get our maintenance crew out there and change this into some of these spaces that he's utilizing into an intake room, to where when the youth is brought into the building, it will be an area that they can sit before they go past the line of incarceration, right?
It would be a non-secured area for them
Correct.
to be evaluated upon being brought after an arrest, if they bring them in. Correct, and it's non-secured.
Yeah, my intent is to make a recommendation not to renew the school that Dr. Payne has run for so many years. we've kind of evolved into those students who need that help. Genesis is located right down the street, and I think some of the judges can refer to Genesis currently for those students who need that additional help. So that will be my recommendation, but this will give her some extra room if we do bring on that, if you allow her to have this extra magistrate.
Any other questions at all? Commissioner Phillips?
No other question. If there aren't any other questions or concerns,
I think Chairman,
I was just going to ask you, you have up here an additional magistrate request of $98,000. Is that's the figure?
that's the starting
With benefits.
figure. And then the benefits.
And then benefits
on
with-
top of that.
on top of that.
And that's why we're also offering the contract services where you don't pay the benefits. And then we would contract with someone to be that magistrate on the days that we have the other courtrooms available, if we're able to work that out.
Okay.
But we
Mr.
definitely
Phillips?
need the secretary.
it's just part of the fact of life. It's part of the Rutherford County that we live in today and will live in going the future. It's going to cost us more money to provide services to the citizens that are moving in here in an astronomical amount. I move that we forward this on to our budget committee with a favorable recommendation.
We have a motion, Commissioner Phillips. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second, Commissioner Gammon. Further discussion?
I've got a couple questions,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman.
Commissioner Fromm.
Commissioner P.
P.
Yeah, one thing I do want to say, I said there was a 203,000 difference. It was actually 197,000. I just did a quick estimation a while ago. But you made a statement that the other court was being paid about $1 million more than you, or your court. I assume you're talking about the people that are working for the court, not the judges themselves, because those
No,
salaries
not
are
the
set by the
judges.
state,
They're
are they not?
personnel. They're personnel.
Okay, I just want to be straight on that. I'm not against this, but I'm going to need to sit down and look at it a little bit more, but I don't have any problem with this going forward, the budget.
Commissioner Rather, did you?
I just want to clarify something. I heard you say you need parenting. Did I hear that correctly?
No, sir.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure what you thought I might have said. I need to clarify.
I thought you said that. That was the need for another position, but
We just need more. See, we can't, by law, we can only have one juvenile judge. And then the judge appoints magistrates that work under them. We don't have, like we do in general sessions, elected judges. And I said, we just need that, and we need clerical help with everybody.
I just want to clarify that. I don't have a problem with this at all.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Anything else, anyone?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir, Commissioner Gammon.
Judge Davenport, and I mean, we respect and really admire all the judges that are there. You're also elected, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the only thing I know is what's the difference, with your years of service compared to even the newest judge coming in? What's the difference in your salary?
There's not in the judges. I made reference to their staff salary
Okay.
is, and I can give you those figures, and this was last year's. Their salaries for assistants, deputies, and part-time was $258,862, where ours was $187,344. Just for those three, and then there's more in other line items.
What causes the difference there? Is it a different pay
I
plan?
have no
or something?
idea. If they have more staff than we do, I don't know their structure.
I mean, maybe that's something we can request Sonia look into to see what the difference is and ask and move forward like Commissioner Phillips said, and just look at this in the future and correct if there's such a disparity.
Well, can I address one thing I think might be a difference? We have absolutely no court deputies in our courtrooms. We have 2 deputies in the building, and then I have part-time officers that we call court officers that report to me, and they're part-time. And they may have full-time, I don't know. But that might be part of the difference there.
Well, there's obviously a difference in full-time and $10 an hour. Been there, done that.
Anything else, Commissioner?
No, ma'am.
Gammon?
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Rather?
I stand corrected. You said parity. P-A-R-I-T-Y.
Parity, yes, sir.
Yes. I
Million?
thought you said parenting.
No, parity.
I got a
Yes, sir.
text that
That's
said,
okay.
here's what she said. I will say this, I've been in your courtroom, I've met you probably don't remember, but I have said this for years and years, back when it was Judge Scott, Judge Davenport. If we have a judge that has a box in the courtroom with belts in it that requires young people to put a belt on and hold their pants up in a courtroom, I'm all for it.
Thank you, sir.
Great job.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Call the roll.
Mr. Phillips? Yes. Mr. Sherino?
Yes.
Mr. Rather?
Yes.
Mr. Gorley?
Yes.
Mr. P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you very much.
Chairman Reed,
Yes, sir.
I wanted to apologize for getting on here late. I had a little internet problem, so accept my apology, sir.
No problem. Powers report. Good evening, Director.
Good evening. You can see for the month of February, we had 342 animals come into the shelter. You can see down at the bottom that we had a live release rate for our dogs of 94.9%, our cats of 93.7%, and overall, when you include the wildlife, was 92.7%. 173 animals that were reclaimed were from our surgery programs. I'm proud of our vet staff. We were closed for that month with the weather. They still did 173 surgeries, so they were really moving on back there. And then we had 24 cats that were released through our trap neuter release program. Our calls into the shelter and our people into the shelter were down for the month, of course, with this being closed. We were still handling calls, but the call volume, everybody was playing in the snow versus calling us. And you can see that we traveled 10,000 miles for the month. If you go over fiscal year to date, you can see we had a live release rate of 92.7%. We've handled 12,604 calls, and we've traveled a little over 95,000 miles. For our rabies exposure and bite report for the month, you can see that we had 17 bites that were reported. None of those were sent for testing. And we had 6 other exposures, none of those sent for testing as well. And then the last page of the report is the graph, just so you can visually see the live release rate versus euthanasia and other outcomes for animals in the shelter. And that's my report, sir.
Okay. Any questions on the report?
Mr. Chairman, move to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Commissioner Gurley.
Second.
Have second. Commissioner Rather. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Sherino?
Yes.
Mr. Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Mr. P?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I do have one more thing, sir.
Okay, sir.
It's a grant. I've been talking with Rachel about this. It's our Animal Friendly grant that we apply for every spring through the state of Tennessee to help assist low-income residents with spay and neutering of their pets. I'm just asking for permission to apply. There is no county match. The most that an organization can apply for is $5,000, which is what we will do. However, we've never received that amount. Basically, they just tell you what you're going to get and you're happy and go along with it. So just asking your permission to apply for that.
Move to approve the request.
Move to approve the request for the grant.
Second.
Have the second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir. Public Safety Director. Director Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. As you have in front of you our monthly EMA report, a couple of things that I'd like to bring out is we became very good friends with the National Weather Service over this last month concerning winter storms and also severe thunderstorms. Some of those briefings that we sent out to public safety personnel or public safety committee members, I'm hoping that you received those, such as the winter storm brief and the thunderstorms and severe weather. We've also assisted with Murfreesboro City Schools in providing resources to their vaccination pod, and we will do that again this Friday as well, along with Rutherford County EMS and also Murfreesboro Fire Department. And I will try to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Any questions anyone has? If not, I ask for approval of the report.
So
Move
moved.
to approve.
Commissioner Gurley, do you have a second? Second. Commissioner Rather. Any further discussion? If not, call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Sir, I have a budget amendment.
Okay.
We would like to move $4,400 from $196 in-service training to $499 other supplies and materials. This would go to provide funds to cover a setup cost for some new technology, such as CAD field ops software, which is this would be the initial, and this would help other departments through fire and EMS to purchase field ops as well, and then also drone connection. We're able to connect remotely, as we did here recently with a barricade, working with the Sheriff's Department, Fire Department, and EMS while we're all on the scene.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
A motion approved. Commissioner Gurley, you have a second.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Sereno. Any discussion on this amendment? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Gorley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Ambulance? Emergency medical?
Chairman, I'm going to let the ladies go first.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Just want to give you a quick update on the affairs of the Medical Examiner's Office. In February, deaths investigated by our team of investigators totaled 84. Cases sent for autopsy was 22. So this reflects a shorter calendar day month. Of those that we sent for autopsy, 8 are suspected to be overdoses. We had 2 suicides, and 2 are being investigated as homicides at this time. March to date, we have had 54 deaths investigated by our team. 20 have been sent for autopsy. Of those, 12 are suspected to be overdoses. We've had 2 additional suicides, unfortunately, and then 1 suspected homicide. And we did have 1 toxicology-only study for this month as well. There was a case that did not reach the threshold for autopsy, but it was appropriate for toxicology study. We've had in-service classes continuing. I want to extend my thanks to ADA Eric Farmer for providing us some instruction and some insight into how they prosecute drug-related deaths and our roles within those investigations as EMS as well as medical examiner investigators and how we impact those investigations and prosecution. So great thanks for him for providing us that insight and instruction. Next month we are having Detectives Richard Brinkley from the SO as well as Christina Keeves from Laverne PD. They are both going to join us again with some more photography instruction. We're going to have some mock scenes for our investigators to prepare for utilizing the cameras in their investigations and reports, hopefully starting next month. Finally, the construction has started on the remodel of the stockroom at one of our stations to transition it to the medical examiner examination room, which is being funded by the Coverdell grant funds. Is there any questions?
I have one.
Commissioner Gammon.
And I know we're building to this, but how many boots on the ground do we have that's actually law enforcement side investigating these, other than other personnel?
I'm sorry, I don't think I'm understanding completely. The investigators for the medical examiner's office, is that what you're inquiring about?
Yeah, that actually will do, the footwork and get out here and, ask questions and investigate and those type of things.
Absolutely. Well, currently we have our 5 supervisors, the assistant directors and North End supervisors, and in addition, when they are not available, we have another 10 supervisor alternates that are working in addition to myself. So we have about 16 of us that are available to do the investigations on behalf of the medical examiner's office.
Okay, and these are the people to go out in the field and interview and take statements and those type of things, not just the forensic side, is that correct?
Yes, sir, yes. It's more for the medical legal side of affairs. Obviously, our EMS team are very versed in the medical sides of things, and that's why we're providing them the additional training for the legal sides of their investigations to complement what's the knowledge and experience they already have.
Okay, and I don't mean to ride this horse so much, but the question that I have is you don't have a perfect world situation. We don't in this county, and Commissioner Phillips will tell you that in 2 seconds, obviously, and truthful. But is there a desired number of investigators you'd like to have?
It's kind of a loaded question, Commissioner, but
it is. It's not going to kill you to answer it. I'm just saying. What to aim for?
Currently, because we have our supervisors, obviously they have their hands full and they're incredibly busy trying to run the shift, as well as providing death investigations. And and some nights some shifts they're doing 6, 7, 8 death investigations in addition to all their current duties. So it does take a lot of their time. The reporting itself takes a lot of their time. So ideally, we would have investigators that is their sole dedicated role, rather than our supervisors who are doing a valiant job and an incredible job, but it is very time-consuming from the rest of their duties while they're on shift. So it's, ideally we would have at least 3 dedicated investigators on top of, in addition to myself, to be able to run the department without having to double duty. I would say double duty, but it's slightly more than that, I believe, in all the other duties and roles they're having to do in addition to death investigation.
Okay. And I'm just saying that I have worked homicides, and, normally we have X number of assistant investigators. Everybody's got a job to do, and everybody's on the same playing field. I'm no better than anybody else. But this is such a proactive direction and program that I just want to see it go where it needs to go. That's all I'm saying, and that's enough for me to say.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes, sir.
It's quite interesting. I know when I'm out here talking about some of the things that this department is doing right here, is when people say, well, how is the county morgue doing? Well, if you don't know that, there is no such thing when we get into that and discuss that. And it seems to shock a lot of people out there. Said, are you kidding me? And I said, no, I'm not kidding you. But the toxology of what we're trying to do now, this lady right here has done a lot with this, and as far as saving us money, dealing with that more so than the autopsies that we have to deal with, and what is changing that department and working that away. I can see where some of the things you're talking about right there, and seeing that department as it continues to improve and going direction, I think of what you're looking at and what you're talking about. And I appreciate you bringing up those comments.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Any other questions?
Chairman.
Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to dovetail in behind your discussion, because talking about this, and for the commissioners to keep this in mind as we continue to look at this report. If you look at line 7, we're paying $19.60 each for each autopsy, as we have to send those to Nashville for the autopsies. And if you look at our year-end total for 2019 and 2020, we were at $502. Based on your current paid to date through February, you were at $472. So if you keep that pace for the next 3 months, it looks like you'll eclipse at least $600,000.
Yes, sir.
So each year we're gaining about another, with our population, we're gaining about another $100,000 that we are having to spend. So as we continue in quest for one day a forensic center, this could help on operating cost by keeping it in-house instead of sending it to Nashville. So that's our ultimate goal.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Thank you. We'll include your report in with the total report.
Thank you.
Good evening. We've got some budget amendments.
Okay.
The first one, we would request to move $10,000 from our 321 engineering services into our assessments and penalties, which is 530. That line item is the 10-care agreement participation line item. Basically, we pay them, they pay us. We always collect more than they pay us. Than we pay them, I'm sorry. Can we do all three?
Yeah, because I think you've got them all listed, hadn't you?
Yes, sir. The second one, we're requesting to move $40,000 from our 338 vehicles maintenance and repair services into our vehicle parts, 453. This is the first year that we have separated. Normally everything came out of 338, and we've discovered that we need more parts than we do services. So we're just requesting to move that into the vehicle parts. And last but not least, it's pretty self-explanatory, I think. We need to move $125,000 from our 735 health equipment into drugs and medical supplies, 413. COVID, due to new protocols for COVID, we have used more drugs and medical supplies than normal. And that's all of our amendments.
Okay. You've heard the request of the amendment. Do I have a motion to approve this amendment?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion made, Commissioner
Second.
P. Have second, Commissioner Gurley. Any other discussion? Commissioner Rather?
We're approving all three?
All three?
Yes.
They're all on
All
the
right.
same sheet
All right.
that you have
All
there.
right.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner Cedeno,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Director?
Hey, I will be short tonight on behalf of Ed Elam. So, okay, the number of emergency calls that the ambulance service made was 3,020. Total hospital transfers we did were 62. Total number of calls were 3,082. Our average response time was 7.5, but I want you to keep in mind this was last month, and our snow delayed our response time. So we had one shift, we had 160 calls, and had another shift that was 140 calls, and at no time did we wreck an ambulance during all of this. So I'm pleased with these response times considering the amount of calls we had. State payments the number of DOAs we had were 84. We received $2,100 from the state payments on those. We sent 22 for an autopsy. The amount we've paid for those was $43,120. Year to date, we've done 241 autopsies, and so far we've paid $472,360. On the collection side, we've billed $1,203,125. We've collected $666,467. Year-to-date collections are at $5,567,542. Projected yearly collections at $8,351,313. Our collections are at 117%. Write-offs were at $633,598, and other write-offs were $39,088. On the non-emergency side, we had 459 calls. We had to decline 20. Total billed was $327,476. We collected $88,930. Year to date, we've collections at $841,428. Projected collections are at $1,262,142. Our collection rate's at 55%. The insurance write-offs were $166,010, and other write-offs at $24,618. I received a couple of thank you notes from some nurses at the hospital, also a thank you note from one of our elected officials, and received a nice thank you and a job well done notice from Melanie, my number 2. We picked up a friend of hers, and that's my report, sir.
You've heard the report. Any questions for the director?
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion for approval. Do you have a second? Have a second. Commissioner Phillips. Call the roll.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner Cedeno,
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Fire and rescue. For the month of February, we had a total of 559 calls, 7 structure fires, 268 medical calls, 83 MVAs, 36 of those were with injury, 47 of them were without injury. Total year to date, we've had 1,210 calls, 19 of those are structure fires, 618 medical calls, 138 MVAs with 68 with injuries, 70 without injuries, 2 extrications. The next sheet is the total of what countywide, including the volunteers, run. 29 structure fires, 240 MVAs, and 2 extrications with a total of 1,458 calls. The next sheet is what we turn into the codes department of homes that have been damaged by fire. The next page is showing the 5 fire investigations that were performed and the outcome of those. We did 10 fire alarm installations. And then the last page is the illegal burn report and where those took place at. Also, the mayor asked me to give you all an update on our Station 52 out in Walter Hill. We've have been relocated to Thompson Lane to co-locate with Murfreesboro Fire and Rescue Station 7 because of sewer system issues at Walter Hill Station. This is just the first sheet is showing $4,341 of quote to replace all the gutters that were tore down by the ice, to replace a damaged and rotten rafter. And then the next sheet is a document to show, and there's an illustration on the back to show on the advice of Mike Hughes, County Engineering, because of all the sewage issues we've had and the water being so saturated, this company is going to dig up a ditch behind the station and put in about an 8-inch pipe. The gutters will be piped in that pipe, so when all the water comes off the roof on the back, it will go down those gutters, go in the 8-inch pipe, and be rerouted out to Jefferson Pike. There's a lot of water comes off the back of the roof, and all that water goes right on top of where our septic lines are at. The reason we're out of the station is because the sewage started backing up into the station, and I'm going to give a copy of this to Rachel so she can send it out to y'all, because I got it late this afternoon. I did some calculations on what we spent on the sewer system there since 2019. So far, we spent $10,579.29. Some of that's pumping in the tank. Some of it's added, we spent $3,000 adding fill lines to it. There's a total of 400 feet of fill lines for that station. That station was never built to be manned 24/7. So actually, my home has 400 feet of fill lines. So it should be about 2,000 that would actually withstand the capacity of somebody being there 24/7. So when this is all said and done, and I ain't doing anything to the sewer lines, it's going to be a total of $18,000 we've spent on the sewer system. The issue dealing with that is that we're landlocked, and we've put all the fill lines on at that location we can because we have no more property to put it on. Mike did also reference putting a curtain drain over there because we're the convenience center behind the station. All that runoff runs off on the convenience center onto our property where the fill lines are at. And so basically we started, before we moved out of the station, we called Scott's out there to pump the tank, and the water is the ground is so saturated with water. As we pumped it out of pumped the tank, the water was backfilling back in the tank faster than we could pump it out. So with sewer coming up into the station, we had no choice but for the safety of our employees to relocate them. Mayor McFarland was kind enough to let us move over to Section 7. So we've been trying to do everything we can to remedy this and get back in there. I think the biggest problem we have right now is that there's so much building going on, it's hard to get contractors. These proposals I have from Home Products do the gutters. They told us 2 or 3 weeks out, and that's been about 2 weeks ago or more.
So we're at their mercy whenever they can get to us because there's so much business going on. But like I say, we added 200 feet of fill lines back there with what we had for a total of 400 feet, but we don't have any more property to add any more fill lines. So hopefully we can get, if we can get some dry, and it's supposed to rain next week, so if we can get some dry periods and where it can dry back out and pump it out again, we'll try to get back out there. But I just want to give you an update on that. And like I say, that it'll be a total of $18,000 time we're through with this tonight. I'll give this to Rachel because I got that late this afternoon. I wasn't able to get it in my report. And that concludes my report.
We have questions? Gentlemen? Commissioner Rather?
So if I understood correctly, a curtain drain at the convenience center may help your issue with the fire station.
Well, we put the curtain drain in to help with the runoff from the community center, but it hadn't helped much. And basically what the answer, I think, is more fill lines. And
nowhere to put the field lines.
No, and that's...
So that's really not an answer.
Well, yeah, we really don't have any...
Bottom line, I mean,
everything that's surrounded by us is Republic, and what they have right next to us is actually lower than where we're at. So if they did give us the property and we put the fill lines there, then water's going to stand there too. So there's really not much we can do.
my thing is, if there's nothing else to do, if you're kind of bound, so to speak, you're spending money ever so often, however much it's used, and to what end? You keep spending the money and nothing gets totally resolved. Now, if I'm understanding correctly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that's where we're headed. We're going to throw money at it, but we're going to have the same problem often.
Well, that's the reason trying to put the drain system in off the gutters, because all the runoff off the roof, reroute it down into a drain pipe and divert it away from the fill lines. That's going to help a little bit, but
that'll help,
but it
will not fix.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, I'm, sound like I'm getting on to you. I'm not. I do applaud the Mayor McFarland and the city. Chairman Reed can attest to this. Last commission meeting or whenever it was, I ride by that Thompson Lane station every day. I'm like, why is the Rutherford County fire truck parked there? I'm like, why? What do we? So it was explained to me that there was an issue, but I don't want to throw money at an issue. I want to throw money at the resolution. That's what I'm getting to.
It was either go there, which is located on the north side, or put them all the way on a volunteer station out on Leland Road, which is on the other side of the county. So, and I want to add too that all three shifts of Murfreesboro Fire Department have been very welcoming, very kind, and worked great, and enjoyed having our people there. But I realize we can't stay there forever, so we're doing everything we can to hopefully get back in the station until we can do better.
Quick question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to publicly thank you to Mayor McFarland, City Council, Chief Folks, for allowing us in this time of need when our system failed to move in temporarily. But as I've said a couple of times today, I don't want to be like Uncle Eddie on Christmas vacation and wear out our welcome, because after a while you get tired of, when these guys are going to get out. This is our place. So, but going back to what Commissioner was talking about, I too don't want to continue throwing good money after bad. There is one other option. What I'd like to do, Mr. Chairman, is get the committee to if you could go ahead and authorize getting the gutters put back on. That's that one quote. But the second quote, and I talked to Mike Hughes just before we came up, there is possibly one other option, is instead of digging a curtain drain where there's no guarantee that it's going to, it may fail as well, and we may have thrown good money after bad, is the possibility of digging a larger hole, putting in a larger tank, not a septic tank, but just a receptacle tank, and then we pump and haul. Just bring in a honey wagon, pump it out, haul it off as sludge. That is a possibility, and he said that possibly could work if we could find out what the dollar amount would be. At least that will be a temporary fix until we get into the topic that we're going to talk about next, what's going to be happening in 18 months. So I'd hate to really throw a lot of money into that facility when we're not going to be there in hopefully 18 months, if you all agree with the next topic.
Mr. Gurley.
Yeah, I think, like the mayor said, we don't want to wear out our welcome. I appreciate Murfreesboro letting Rutherford County sponge off of them for a few weeks or a couple of months or whatever it takes, but we've got to do some kind of temporary fix. But I think ultimately we've got to move from that location because there's no long-term fix period for there. So we're going to have to move from that location. That's a more costly situation, but it's a permanent situation. But I don't see that we have a whole lot of choice. When the water off the roof runs back into your building and back into your field lines, you've got to get rid of it. I have a basement house. That's the key to keeping the dry, diverting that water away from the house. Ultimately, my feeling is let's do this. And in the scheme of things, this is a small amount of money, but then let's look forward to finding something. But anything we do long-term is going to take time. We're talking about a year and a half or 2 years probably down the road. So, yeah, let's go ahead and do it and get the guys back in there so they don't wear out their welcome. So if we need to come back to and ask Murfreesboro again sometime later down the road, we still got a welcome there.
Well, that was actually our last resort. I even checked about buying a porta potty that you use at wedding events, and that was $2,000 a week, but they said they'd give it to us for $1,000 a week, so that was still outside my budget. So we're just trying to do everything we can to get us back in there until we can do better. And like I say, Mike said that would divert and that water would help a lot. But it remains to be seen that this facility was made, it was built as a volunteer station. It was never intended to be used full time. And we've actually got more life out than I thought we would have.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was Ben Franklin that once said that guests are like fish. They start smelling after 3 days. And that may be where we don't want to get in that position and where we're going there. Old Ben could always come up with the proper answer in those things. I think what we're looking for here is that motion to go ahead and make these temporary repairs to take care of our situation at this time.
I'll second that.
Have the second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Sireno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
And for the record, I have the money in my budget to be able to handle that. So, on next item is, I told you last month we bring back the agreement for emergency services for the volunteers. I think if memory serves me correct, we did show y'all a copy of this, and Commissioner P recommended that we take it to the volunteers and let them look at it and get their feedback. Mayor Ketchum met with them on, I think, 2 occasions, and they went back and forth on how to resolve this. I think they finally did agree upon what you see before you. And so I just want to bring it to you, let you review it, and hopefully get your approval, and then we can move forward on that.
Gentlemen, I think you have a copy of all of these, or you have received copies of these. You have a general agreement, which is what we call the red line agreement, which is included in all of these contracts that we have from all of the volunteer departments. And I think you have copies of those volunteer departments that have signed those.
I move that we approve all of the volunteer agreements that are on our iPad.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Commissioner Serino, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just to make sure, this is all of our volunteer departments have agreed to this. The only one that we've held out is Eagleville. We're working a separate language agreement with them. Jimmy Turner had, about the time we were about ready to sign this, Jimmy was appointed by the governor as judge, and he was the attorney for the city of Eagleville. So our attorney has it in hand, and we'll work out that language with them because they're not a true volunteer fire department. We'll work out a different language to bring that back before the committee.
We have the motion and a second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Serino?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Radio systems? Mr. Rogers.
All right, good evening. I don't want to be a guest, so I'm just going to hit the highlights here. That we don't start smelling, right? So we continue with the mobile installs. We're able to have our managing network client install, which allows the county side of the radio network to be managed. That's up and running now. EMS dispatch is back home. They're operating on the new system. The sheriff's office is operating on the new system, but they're using the backup radios until we get upgrades in, which should be in the coming days. And lastly, our GeoPrime, which is our backup system for the radio, or our backup package for the radio system, was expected to be in place and up and running during an ice storm. So obviously we know that prevented us from doing that, so that's been postponed till later in April. And then we'll have the GeoPrime that back up and running, so if we have a failure, we'll just keep moving right along, we won't even know it. Yes, sir.
Can you give us a quick synopsis of the damage that occurred at Lynch Hill, having experienced a previous ice storm and a previous tornado at that site?
So we had severe tree damage along the roadway, which is going to require removal at some point in the near future. We had a large number of trees on the north side of Lynch Hill, as well as the south side, sustained damage, a lot of those along the roadway. We had ice damage in the sense it did not affect us, luckily, because we had new installs, but Bedford County had to have all their microwave equipment realigned because of the ice buildup. We had a large amount of ice buildup on the overall tower in the last 48% section of that tower. Our generator, we had a failure of a boot on the prime piece of machinery that's a pump/water cooler. So we thought we had a blowout of the oil system, which come to find out was the actual boot in that oil cooler. So we had a loss of water and oil. So come to find out, we dropped water pressure, which shut our generator down. So we had to have a generator through the National Guard, working through TEMA, and Road Superintendent Brooks provided a bulldozer that we had to use to pull the generator to the top of the hill that provided power to us, the state, Bedford County, Coffee County for roughly 6 days.
I think this vindicates any question about the increase in stability and strength that was done on the tower here roughly 8-9 months or a year ago, because you think these type of things are not going to happen, and then they happen. And so Thank you.
So we had the large buildup in that area because we had freezing fog for several days. So all it was that moisture just sitting there and clinging to everything. So I don't think I sent some pictures out. I'll send some pictures out of what the tower looked like in that general area, and you'll get an idea. So that is something, by the way, that if it happens again, we already know what to expect, but if it happens again, we know we're even in more trouble because of the damage we had. That's just going to linger into trees that are dying, and they're going to fall a lot easier. And that's it.
Okay. Any questions, Mayor?
Got an update on our CAD to CAD communication?
No, sir, that doesn't fall in my realm.
All right.
So I'm not aware of what the status is on that.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? If not?
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Before we leave public safety, I do want to remind you, Commissioners, of March 30th. That's when we'll have the recognition of our emergency medical personnel at the Ag Center. Be out there around 11 o'clock. And March 30th. What did I say? Okay, March 30th at the Ag Center. Mission Barbecue is going to provide the meal for them, and I think this is a good opportunity. They're going to recognize for the effort that they made back during the storm that we had, and you're all invited to be there to help in that recognition. So be sure and put that on your calendars. They would love to see you there. All right, you have another on item 5 right there. Some of you may have been wondering what this was, and some have questioned and what we had there. We've had an interesting week, and there's been a lot involved, and I think there's been some hints made that this is going to be some of the discussion relating to some of the things we've already discussed and what we've had to deal with in other situations. But Commissioner Steve Piercy out in the Las Casas area wanted to come and speak before this group, so I'm going to ask that you suspend the rules, allow the Commissioner to come forward and speak at this time, if that's okay. I have the motion to move, and if it's under just general agreement, we'll just do that. And Commissioner, we're glad to have you this evening to come out and explain the situation you have there in your district. Glad to have you this evening.
First of all, I want to tell y'all that I appreciate what you're doing, sitting on this committee. I sat on it for 4 years with several of you here, and you'll spend some long nights before you ever get finished. 4 weeks ago, when it first come up about putting a new fire hall in my district, it was I was told it was going to be placed in Walter Hill. I wasn't quite in agreement with that because it wasn't centrally located in my district. Walter Hill, of course, is in my district, but it's in the lower portion, and my district runs all the way up to the Cannon County line and then on over to the Wilson County line, which covers Las Casas and Milton all the way. Goes over toward the Trimble area, goes out toward the Canesville area, out to Canesville Pike. It's a very large district. Since then, I have rethought it to some point. I know Mr. Farley is in dire need of a station in Walter Hill and would love to get away from the landfill situation and maybe get in a little better environment. It was brought up that if we moved it from Walter Hill to Las Casas, it could possibly affect the ISO ratings for some people. It could affect the service out on 840. And we really don't want to bother either one of those situations because it's a large district and it's going to take a lot of coverage to cover it all well. We have come upon the opportunity to fix this problem, but it's got to start with this committee right here. Money will be available to add another fire station to our 5 and build the 6th station and put it at the Las Casas location. We do have the property. I feel like it would be a great asset to our community to have this structure built there. And it's not just for now, the ones that has served with me know that I've kind of looked to the future, and our area, like everywhere else, is growing in leaps and bounds. And I think in the future we will need a fire station there along with our volunteers. Our volunteers are improving, I've been told. Their numbers are growing. And hopefully if we could build them a new station there with a ambulance service and the tornado community room in the center, I believe it would be a good move for our commission. If we don't act on it while we have the money available, it'll probably never be done, because other streams are going to take most of the money our commission is going to get for a long time. I have discussed it with Casas lightly, but until I could really get an approval of the 6th station, I didn't want to go build their hopes up and then let them down. I've lobbied for an ambulance station out there ever since I've sat on the commission, and this makes 7 years. Got pretty close once, went the wrong way on another issue, and it didn't happen. But I'm asking y'all to consider putting us another ambulance station and fire station in Las Casas on our old ground at the school site. Mr. Gurley.
How many volunteers does Las Casas have at the present time?
Depends on what article you read.
Oh, well, can you enlighten me?
I had to answer it truthfully.
How many do you have that can actually, many do you have that can take a truck, take it to a fire, and fight a fire?
Not very many.
Not very many.
No.
But
we hope that with improving our facilities, maybe we can attract more volunteers, and if we can maybe get some on-site training there at a new station, it will help and improve our numbers.
Yeah, the reason I say that, the volunteer fire department that's in a good part of my district has the volunteers, and I don't want to do anything that would push a new facility for them, because they're fighting fires every day. They're responding, they're strong. And I think at some point in time, if we can come up with the money, I guess it gets back right now. Let's hear how we're going to come up with the funding.
Do you want us to explain that, Commissioner? I think we got them tore up to the point, where's this money coming from? You sort of dangled the carrot out there. I think we're going to have to explain where the salad's coming from.
Let me talk about the carrot.
Talk about the carrot, man.
All right. Members, a week ago Friday, so it'd be Friday prior week on March the 12th, we were on a Zoom call about a new bill that was actually passed in Congress. It's been signed. It was passed by Congress, signed by the President, and this is a much larger grant than what we had anticipated. If you remember back in November, December, we thought we had an opportunity, probably earlier than that, had an opportunity to apply for a BRIC grant, if you recall that. And we thought that if we answered all the questions and hit all the icons, that it might put us in a good position to compete for this BRIC grant on a nationwide basis, thinking that announcement on the BRIC grant was going to be announced sometime in June, and that was going to put us somewhere right around budget. And so the decision was, we felt like that if we don't get the BRIC grant to build 5 stations was our intent with that BRIC grant, and that's what we submitted to the federal government to get that BRIC grant through TEMA, then we would come back and get the commission hopefully to approve at least 2 locations, one being in Rockville and the other one being in Kittrell, okay? And so here comes this other grant that just came in a week ago Friday. So all last week we were scurrying around trying to figure what the heck's going on. Is it true? Is it, it's almost an embarrassing amount of money that's coming to us, but I'm not going to say, no, we don't want it, because we're going to take it. This is a windfall. This is a windfall for our county, and we're blessed to be in a position to accept this money. So this grant is called the State and Local Coronavirus Fiscal Recovery Funds, and it's part of the American Rescue Plan Act. I gave you a copy of it. It should be on your desk, and put it on SharePoint. The president signed it on March the 11th. That's when we received the call the very next day on the 12th. They have to, within 60 days, they have to allocate 50% of the money allocated for each one of the counties across the country. And then they have, within 12 months from that date, they have to allocate the additional 50%. So I go scrolling through on the computer all the way down through every state, every county in each state, starting with Alabama, got down to Tennessee. And the amount allocated for Rutherford County is $64,444,630. So with that in mind, without the BRIC grant, we can go ahead. This is a windfall, like I said. Every year we come in and say nothing ever goes to general fund, because education consumes most of every dollar that comes into this county. This is an opportunity to serve our rural communities like we've never had this opportunity before. We had estimated, and you all had authorized Bart Klein with Klein Sweeney to go ahead and start working up the architectural design. I cut a deal with him that he would only charge 100% on the first architectural design, and then everything we replicated after that, if we got the BRIC grant up to 5, he'd only charge 50%. Okay? So that was a deal on doing all of them at one time. So with this amount of money going, and that was going to cost us about $22 million, I think, what we talked about if we did all 5. So now we're looking at about $27 million. Each one of the locations that you see on this board right here in front of you is going to run us a little over $5 million apiece. I'm suggesting to you that we look favorably upon passing and building 7 of these in our rural communities. It will take approximately 18 months to build them, but he's already working on the architectural design. We've already started doing geotech on Rockville and Kittrell. I think that this will well position us for growth for several years. And we can start planning next year how we're going to man them. Right now, the intent, and there was questions last week from our volunteer departments, this is just another way to get rid of us. No, that's not, because we can't afford that right now. But if we'll take Almaville, if we'll take Christiana, Las Casas and Kittrell, and put them into those departments on the side that you see over there where the fire department is, and then Director Hudgens will man the other side. This will give us public safety, plus the tornado shelters as a community room in each one of our rural communities. This is a great, great opportunity we're being blessed with. So my recommendation to you tonight in this committee to move forward is let's get the green light and go forward with all 6 locations.
Mayor.
Can you reiterate where we're talking about building this?
Yes, sir. It would be Rockville and Kittrell were our first 2, irregardless whether we were able to get the BRIC grant or not. Then we go to Christiana, Almaville, now Las Casas, Kittrell, Rockville, and Walter Hill.
Yeah. Now, Catherine.
Yes, sir.
I've got to say, I just want to say my part. I mean, I've been involved in the public safety for many years, and this is such a move forward that we'd be asleep at the wheel if we don't take the advantage of it and take care of the people in the community. The way we're growing, everybody here knows how things are going. And if we don't get on the wagon now, we're going to pay for it later. So I'm 100% on board to do everything we can do to get these grants, move forward, and take care of the people in the communities. So I'm 100% on board. I'll be the first one, if it's proper yet, to make the motion to move forward with this.
I think it's proper.
The amount of money we'll be spending on these buildings, total what of that prospective grant? What percentage are we talking about?
Can I go ahead and make a second on that where we can open it up for discussion?
Okay.
I'll
We have
second.
a motion, we have a second, and we'll now take discussion upon the motion.
Back to the question.
Well, that would...
$4 million. How much are we talking about spending on?
About $25 million. So that would leave us, about $40 million left.
For other projects?
Yes, sir, for other projects. And if you're on Public Works, I'm gonna come to you with another suggestion there with our 14 convenience centers, and we'll still have money left. Okay. And and if the brick grant comes through, if it's for one or two, we'll subtract that from this amount. So it's like I said the other day in a meeting with both Chairman and Commissioner Piercy last Friday, we will never have an opportunity like this again. Not probably in our serving time on the commission, and I think we take advantage of it. I hate that your grandparents or your grandkids are going to have to be paying for this way down the road. I don't know where they're getting the money, but I can't turn around and say, no, we don't want it. We're going to send it back because they're going to give it to somebody else. So we're going to take full advantage of it. It's my recommendation.
I don't want to keep expanding this, but the fire department that's located a mile from my house, where their headquarters are, Amelville, also serves the Amelville area, which is on up the road at 840, and there's a 500 and some odd house subdivision right beside them, with more growing all the time. It's going to be commercial there very soon. They're at the interchange of 840 and Amelville Road, State Route 102. But they also serve an area that Commissioner Rather's district on the other side of, I believe that's your district, on Couchville Pike out there. And that particular area, I have several friends that live out in that area, and that's, I can see that in some areas we could scale this back, but the reason I asked about manpower, Commissioner Piercy, that the building really is nice, but it doesn't make the department. Because Amelville is working out of 3 less than desirable buildings, and they're still serving the communities. But we may want to look, and this is something that's kind of open, but as we plan this out, a smaller scale facility out there, you've got a limited way to get out there. You've either got to cross the bridge, the 2-lane bridge on Weekly Lane, or you've got to go around to 840, or you've got to go around to Hobson Pike, none of which is easy and quick. And the facility that Amelville has out there, it's a makeshift building, and unfortunately or fortunately, however way you want to look at it, fire equipment is getting bigger, and a lot of our fire equipment simply will not go in some of these older buildings. We've found that out with multiple departments. So I just bring that up in that it's kind of a joint thing. It's your district, and the department that serves that is in my district, and so we might want to look and so on. But I don't see the need for the same size facility. But we have I guess you would say, a geographically distressed area or whatever because of the limited access that it's still part of Rutherford County, but it has limited access due to the river and the lake.
Before we vote, Commissioner, would you, like you're wanting to say something there?
I believe the reason we were going with all the same size stations is maybe we can get a better price, a better bid on building them all, because I think we're kind of maybe be looking at letting one contractor build them all if somebody wanted to do that. And of course, some areas may need a larger station than others, but as time goes on and our county continues to populate, we're going to need at least this size station at every location or larger. And while the money's going to be available, I'd love to see it done.
Yeah. This design has 2 bays for fire and 1 bay for ambulance, and he's designing it to where we could add on as that if Las Casas explodes or Amoville explodes down near 840, then you can go ahead and add on an additional ambulance. They can actually get 2 in there back to back in their 1 bay, but we'll make it available to where we can put a pad down and put in another bay for ambulance if it continues to grow with that population based on call volume, which both the directors will be able to supply that for us.
I want you to understand, too, that the Rockville station will not have any of that orange tile in it.
Yeah, Chairman's already made that clear. It'll be some sort of blue, right?
It'll be blue in there somewhere.
Gentlemen, I thank you for your time, and I ask for your help. Thank you,
sir. Commissioner Serino.
Yes, thank you, and I'm glad Commissioner Percy, proposed this, and because I formerly was at the school at Las Casas for 14 years there. I know they will be happy.
Yes, sir. Commissioners, before we vote, I want you to understand, too, you will be I guess you could say, the diplomats of all of this, because you're leading the way as far as what we're doing to get this across to the rest of the commissioners and the importance of it, because this is, I guess you would say, a rural effort of trying to get these out there in pivotal areas to protect Rutherford County, because this would be in all directions, north, south, east, and west. I think a few months ago when I stood up and started my little speech over here, as I was told by some people later after that, they said I threw a hissy fit that night when I was talking about this, the importance of what we needed as far as the rural areas. I said, well, if it takes a hissy fit to get something every now and then, I want to do that, and I did that. And last Monday morning, Commissioner Piercy calls me, and he immediately said, Pettis, I need some fire protection in the north end of the county. And I just had to throw it back at him right then. I said, Commissioner, where are we going to get the money for all of this and what we got to do? He said, we can do it. We can do it. And it's just strange. Tuesday morning, I walk in, the mayor starts telling me all about this. And I can't forget that after that, I took it to budget. And I think, Commissioner P., you might remember this, before I sat down at budget that night, I said, I want y'all to understand that every day until we see us a grant, I'm going to be praying about it. Every morning I'm going to get up and pray that we get these stations somehow, in some way. And I want y'all to understand, I hadn't missed a morning yet. And I got to tell you, I've been thanking him about this for the last several mornings, that I appreciate his help in all of this, but I'm not going to quit, because we hadn't turned a shovel and we hadn't got anything either. So I want y'all to continue with me praying for these, because it's important to the people of Rutherford County we do this. Commissioner Gurley?
Yes, I was going to ask if the mayor could have over the next week a GIS map with the existing stations and these proposed stations overlaid on it, that he could email out to us sometime in the next week or 10 days.
Yes, sir.
That would help us in terms of, okay, sure, it's going to be here, it's going to be there, and selling to our citizens and so on.
Mr. Chairman, we can do that for you. Mr. Sandlin, if you'll write that down, we'll make sure that we get that out. But we're not having to buy new property. What we're doing is going on existing property that we own, school property. Almaville, in the case, we'll tear down the old building and place it there. Same thing in Las Casas. We'll do that as long as we can kind of keep that rock wall where everybody got their first kiss, what I understand. We'll try to keep it in keeping of the local community. But I was informed on this past week on another Zoom call that the money will be deposited into our account with Mr. Beatty. We'll get 50% of this by somewhere between the 10th, May 10th and May 15th. So it's guaranteed. It's coming. It's been passed. So what I'm looking for tonight, Mr. Chairman, is the agreement to go with a total of 6 and give me permission to tell Mr. Klein to move forward with the architect design.
And I think that was the motion that Commissioner Gammon made there, that we move forward.
That's the motion.
And I don't think it's been mentioned here that these, and I want you to understand, they're not fire stations, they're public safety buildings. These are county public safety buildings. Everybody asks you,
tornado shelter in the middle.
They're public safety buildings for the communities out there. And they will also contain an office for deputies to use out in the rural areas. If not, I'll ask to call the roll, please.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Chirino?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Commissioner Gammon?
Yes, absolutely.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Commissioner Rather, did we miss something you wanted to say, or?
No, we're good.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you, Commissioner. Okay. Take care of that wall out there. All right. Osha? Actually, I think it's Ed Elam. But
Good evening. OSHA report for the month of February. You'll see in the number of accidents there were 18. Year-to-date's 36. OSHA recordable is 26. Restricted day claims is 15. Lost day claims is 5. Other recordables is 6. On the job injury claims year-to-date, you will see for 2021 there's 36 compared to last year at 2020 at 38 and 2019 at 29. On the job injury incurred dollars year to date, you will see 2021 $140,000, 2020 $99,000, and I will point out again these numbers are beginning to be are elevated because they've changed the amount of money that they are setting aside for the on-the-job injuries incurred compared to how they listed them before last year. And on the last page, you will see that we had a total of 10, the Board of Education, 8 was County General, and of the County General, 4 were the Sheriff's Office, 3 were Solid Waste, 1 was Health Department, for a total of 8. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
thank you, sir. Any questions anyone may have? Motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Phillips, have second. Second, Commissioner Serino. Call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Commissioner Chirino?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good night.
Recovery Court. Evening.
I've got my monthly report and then my budget worksheet.
Let's do your report first, and then we'll do your budget.
Sounds perfect. As you can see, for the month of February, we entered 2 new participants with a total of 132 current. There were 29 other referrals that did not make it in for various reasons. We had a total of 10 people who graduated from our programming and 5 that were terminated due to other reasons. We currently have 80 people on our wait list to be seen. Those people are people who are waiting to be assessed, as well as those waiting to put their plea into the courts. I want to give you a little bit of a heads up. It's not 100%, but it's 99%. The Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services has contacted me that they would like to give us an additional $67,000 in grant funding. This would be an amendment to the grants that we already received from them. So that's to go through the state's budget committee this upcoming week, I believe, so we should hear from that. And once it's finalized, I will let you know. The DUI grant is being finalized and will be submitted to the federal government, to the Bureau of Justice Administration in the first week of April. And in very happy news, for those of you who have been following, we finally caught our skunk. He is no longer wreaking havoc on our building, and I would like to thank Paws for helping me with that. And on a feelings note about what we do in our office, last Friday, one of our participants came in with her 3-month-old son, and she's been having some struggles in different ways and was doing different things in the office, and I was holding her little boy while she was taking care of some business. And at one point, she looked at me and she said, I know that the days are hard, and if you ever forget why you do what you do, just think about my little boy you're holding, because if it weren't for the people in your office, I would be dead, and he would not have a mom. And so if you ever wonder where the support that you provide for Recovery Court goes, it's for people like that. It's for people who are doing the best they can to keep their families together. And that is my report for this month.
Any questions, gentlemen? Report approved. Commissioner Phillips?
Second.
Second. Commissioner Gurley? Call the roll.
The $67,000 in additional grant money, is that for a specific purpose?
It will be divided up between the programs that already received the grants. So that's with Mental Health Court, Drug Court, and Veterans Court. A huge chunk of that is being set aside for client assistance, so it will be able to help with rental assistance, electric bills, transportation needs of clients. What we run into is that a lot of our clients live in rural areas of the community, and they can't get back and forth to our office. So we're trying to alleviate some of that stress. Some of it will go towards new equipment that we need so that staff can have some things in our office so we can teach classes a little bit more smoothly and things like that. And some of it will go towards workbooks so that our clients will have workbooks and they won't cost the county money or our clients money to pay for them. It is, and it will expire. I have to have it spent by June 30th, so our budget is very detailed and has a plan on how we can utilize that.
If any of those are recurring expenses year after year that you'll be spending that money on?
The books and things like that are reoccurring expenses. Getting us a TV so that we can do some classes in one of our classrooms, obviously that's not reoccurring. The housing and things like that, in the past, we've utilized different grants throughout the community, and once they've expired, we've not been able to assist people with rent. This will give us at least through June to do. The grants themselves are annual grants that the state provides for us. They just had some money that they had left over in their budget, saw the things and the growth that we were doing here in our recovery court office, and called me on a Friday night at 7 o'clock and offered it. And much like the mayor said, I don't turn down free money. You're welcome.
Anyone else? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. I believe we have your budget.
Okay. Line items 105 through 212 are employee costs. And what you will see with the way that I did my budget that you received is I turned the areas gray that are $0 on next year's budget. And the ones that don't have a fill that are white are the ones that I'll be talking about today. The other thing I would like to take into account is that a lot of our federal grants run on a federal fiscal year. So some of that you will see where it says this amount is through 9/30 because the federal fiscal year ends on 9/30 and begins on 10/1. So there's some things that 3 months of it will come out of next year's budget, and then the county will pick up the remainder. So I will start with line item 307, communication. What you will see is that I decreased it by about $500 just by reducing the number of cell phones that we will utilize in our office. The 310 and 312 are SAMHSA money. That's, again, the federal grants that go through 9/30. 317 is our CSS, our data system that we utilize for our caseloads. 320 are dues and memberships. There were a few corrections from last year's budget where things were on wrong line items. For instance, the TARCP membership for our office, which is our state oversight board, that needed to be moved to this line item. 333 are licenses. Many of the people in our office are licensed clinicians and licensed individuals. A lot of those are biannual. So I think with the keeping it the same at the 2,000, that makes it where those of us that are due our license this year and those that are due next year, it'll all balance out and won't have to come out at one time. Maintenance agreements, again, you'll see in the bold that there were a few places that were on incorrect line items. So this decreased to where it would just cover the printer. We decreased our postal charges because we're doing a lot more things with electronic devices these days. When you get down to the 355, what you're going to see is that previously we had monies in the 196, the 399, the 524, and the 355. I spoke with Ms. Nolan and she said that those could be combined. So we did combine them, but it also decreased a total of $26,189. And part of the reason on that is that our federal convention next year is in Nashville, so we will not have to travel as far to get the education that we need to do our jobs. The one major increase that you will see is line item 399. That's the AverHealth drug screens. As you know from many, many meetings ago, we knew that there would be an increase in cost in drug screens because we moved to an all-lab system. This is totaled in at, we see an increase of participants coming through. As you know, I have 80 people currently waiting to get in. And just the cost of drug screens outside of what we're doing them in our office. So that's the one major increase you will see. And then some of that SAMHSA money will cover AverHealth participants through 9/30. So you'll see some of that in the 413 SAMHSA and the 399 SAMHSA. Gasoline, we kept it $800. We do home visits. The office supplies, we have decreased a little bit. And in hopes that we're going to use some of the grant money, that the $67,000, to also buy some office supplies that we can utilize at the beginning of next year and take that down. Other supplies, you'll see a reduction on the 499, and it's because we moved, this once was what covered our drug screen, so we moved that up to the contracts area and services. The next one that you'll see is the 599 VTC. That is one of our grants that goes through 9/30. So that $1,495 is specifically utilized through the Veterans Grant to help veterans that need payments for their transportation or for rental assistance or get their license back, different things like that. But that expires on 9/30, so we're utilizing that money for those purposes up until that. And then you will see on the very last page at the end that it is a 7.4% total increase, but that also needs to be taken into consideration that it's the end of 2 of our federal grants and then the increase that we knew was coming with drug screen costs.
Any questions anyone has? Say it's a 7.4% increase?
Yes, sir.
Which is coming from that due to the federal grants increase in the drug screen.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve. Send on to budget.
Approve. Commissioner Gurley, do you have second? Have second. Commissioner Phillips. Further discussion? Call the
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner P.
I'm just curious if the mayor had any input on this before we vote.
I did, Mr. Chairman. We've gone over every budget coming before you tonight. fairly simple. I only cut $1,000 out of her office supplies. I think we went from $2,500 down to $9,500. Cut out. We went down 3 phones, Trish?
I've turned in 3 thus far. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
She's turned in 3 phones, and so we moved line item, did you go over that to $499? We moved that to line item 355?
I did.
Okay. Okay.
I just wanted to make sure you were okay with that.
Yes, sir, I am. My recommendation, same as Mr. Gurley's motion.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Mr. Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you. See, probation report? Good evening.
Hey. I'll just go over my February report. The total revenue for the month of February or our total expenditures for the month of February was $118,006.19. The revenue collected between Circuit Court and General Sessions Court combined totaled $5,982.62. For a total combined revenue of $15,751.62. Minus the expenditures for the month of February, that gave us a difference of $102,254.57. The amount of money of those that the amount of money that was turned over to the clerk's office to be collected through payment agreements for the month of February totaled $9,628. The amount of money in probation fees for the month of February, those that did not enter a payment agreement, totaled $8,680.50. So far this total fiscal year, we've turned over $90,730.75 to the clerk's office to be collected through payment agreements. And the amount of money of those that failed to enter a payment agreement so far this fiscal year totals $84,398.75. And that would be my February report.
Any questions?
Motion to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by Commissioner P. to have a second. Have a second. Commissioner Phillips. Any further discussion? If not, call the roll.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you. Correctional Work Center report.
Chairman, I have our normal report, and then I also have a budget amendment
Okay, sir.
afterwards.
I'll take the report first, please.
So our report, as you can see, is not a whole lot of significant changes in what we normally report. I have added a little bit in there on the litter pickup side, just to kind of give you an idea of, I know we normally report the state routes and the interstates, but I'm going to start putting in there the county roads also. And if you'll see, there's a letter in there that just basically says attached to this information is litter control throughout Rutherford County. The reports reflect the amount of waste picked up weekly on our county roads, and then you all have our state roads and interstates too that it's normally in there. County roads are measured by weight, and state roads are measured by filled bags, and mileage and gasoline are also recorded within those reports. Just a few things to take into consideration when we talk about sending inmates out to do litter pickup. We have to take into consideration weather conditions, road hazards, safety security measures, incidents, staff absence, and then vehicle maintenance. But I'm not going to go through each one of these, but if you'll take a look through there, what you'll find is for this past month, and I'll give you a little comparison over the last little bit. And it was 2016 that we took over state routes. Prior to that, DUI offenders were required to go out and pick up garbage. And they cut that statewide in 2016, and then we picked it up by using our inmates who are incarcerated, and we've continued doing that since 2016, and that's what's normally reported. But back in about May of last year, we talked about also taking over the county roads. And just to give you an idea, back when we first started picking up the county roads using our staff to supervise the inmates, for that month of June, we picked up 7,080 pounds just in garbage on county roads. By the time we got down to November, we were right at 6,100 pounds, something around there. January, when we took it over full time in 2021, we picked up 10,620 pounds of garbage for that month. And then last month in February, we clocked in, and that's with that week off with the ice storm. We picked up 15,900 pounds on county roads alone. So if that gives you an idea of how much garbage is out there, and then we still get calls every day. So the inmates are out there every day picking up on county roads and on state routes and the interstates. I mean, it's an ongoing thing. It's not going to be cured overnight. I think I told somebody the other day that we would literally have to have an army out there picking up every day to be able to keep it clean. It's going to take some help from our citizens. It's going to take help from community groups. It's going to take help from everyone. But that'll give you an idea of what these guys are out there working on when you see them out working. And Chairman, we also got your mattresses the other day too, by the way.
I noticed that. I was getting ready to say, I appreciate your help in that.
But that is our report for this past month. If there are any questions.
Any questions, gentlemen? Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Outstanding job, Director Cope, with an increase in what you picked up in February, over 15,000 pounds with 1 week of snow. You and your department do an excellent job with those guys. Unfortunately, it looks like we may be this time next year before we can change the law. You know, we had talked about, for those of you on Public Works, we had talked about the Tennessee Code allows us, counties, to charge up to a maximum of $500. Right now, the fine for littering is $50. But one section of the code says we can charge up to $500. However, you go to another section of the code, and it gets real confusing because it says that we can only charge $50. If we charge over $50 for littering, then we have to provide a jury trial for anything over $50. And unfortunately, our environmental court, the judge over our environmental court in General Sessions, does not have the authority to seat a jury. That's only, it's just our codes are so convoluted. You know, what one says here it takes away from the other. So I've been in touch with some of our legislative delegation, especially Representative Jeremy Faison. He's leader in the House, and he lives in at foothills of Smoky Mountains, and he's all about this and going to go about trying to change that to where we can start putting some teeth. $50, it doesn't. People don't care. They're just going to continue throwing it out. And if we want a clean county, that's what it's going to have to take. But thank you and your crew for what you're doing. Since we met last time, Director Cope, have we announced that you found a director? I mean, an instructor for our mechatronics program? I don't believe we have.
I don't think we mentioned it, but Mayor and I, and then Deputy Mayor also interviewed a couple different guys for that mechatronics program as the facilitator. We liked both of them. Unfortunately, the first one that we interviewed couldn't take the position, but the second one could. He has gone through our orientation, and today he was actually going through the orientation with the manufacturer of that machinery. Turns out he may have to go to Indianapolis for a 2-day training, but I mean, I can pay for that out of my training budget and should be fine, and he's okay with it. But we're looking forward to getting that kicked off within the next month or so, and hopefully we can get some people doing some additional classes and additional training there.
Yeah, members, if you'll recall, we were trying to find money for the last couple of years, and we were gifted again in the governor's enhancement grant. We got $100,000. And we set aside $175 to pay for the salary for an instructor and the $100,000 for the equipment for the mechatronics. We've already got the equipment in; it's set up. The instructor works. He's very well qualified. Works at the General Motors plant down in Spring Hill, and so we'll work around his schedule, working with our inmates. But hopefully, that this program will actually give some certification by the time they graduate this mechatronics class, and when they get out, they'll be able to hopefully land a job to where it stops that cycle of recidivism. They can afford a car, get an apartment, and don't go back to the ways of living before on drugs and everything else. And so we're actually, hopefully this will be a model case for the rest of the state of Tennessee, because nobody else is doing this. And so there's some excitement there to share with your constituents of what Director Cope is doing out there.
And we have you mentioned recidivism. Our recidivism rate is right around 35% right now for our facility. Nationwide, it's somewhere in the 75 to 80%. So we must be doing something right already. And this will be one more additional tool that we can put in place for rehabilitation and reentry.
Mr. Chairman.
We got a motion to approve and a second. Further discussion?
I just want to share with the chairman, mayor, before the meeting, I've mentioned to the superintendent that the citizen in the District 21 really appreciate the area that they taking care of.
Well, thank you very much. We've gotten a lot of calls, especially over the past few months. People are seeing those guys out there, and our ladies. We've put our female offenders out there doing a lot of work too. Talked about the TCA code, that doesn't segregate there. Everyone's supposed to be held at hard labor, so we're a firm believer of putting our female offenders out there and cleaning up too. So we've gotten several calls thanking us for being out there and being seen a lot more, and more that we can get out there and more that we can clean up, and it just betters our community. So thank you.
Yeah. All right, we have a motion, and it has been seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Mr. P?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips? Yes. Mr. Sereno?
Yes.
Mr. Rather? Yes. Mr. Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. I believe you have a budget amendment for a new skillet.
I do. I have the very rare budget amendment here. I try not to do these, but occasionally something comes up and I have to. I think this is the first one in the past couple years. So, when they installed that oven skillet, the tilt skillet and the kettle in our facility, it was in 2008. And since 2008, we've been using those same three machines to prepare 3 meals a day, 7 days a week for 2 different facilities and sometimes 3 different facilities. I think it's time to replace them. We've put Band-Aids on that tilt skillet for, goodness, Captain, 5 years probably. So I think it's time to replace them. So I'd like to move in this. We figured this with Lisa Nolan and figured this would be the best place to take it. So we'd like to move some money out of our utilities and out of our employee and dependent insurance for a total of $46,800 to replace all 3 of those, the oven, the skillet, and the kettle.
You've heard the request. Have a motion? Move to approve. Motion to approve. Got a second? Have a second. Commissioner Gurley, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Chirino?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Chairman Reed?
Yes. That's it, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll have
Appreciate
them
it.
drop those mattresses off at your house.
No, don't drop those mattresses off. I've seen them enough. All right, juvenile detention. Usually they're on there, but a lot of times they're in the report towards the end. If you keep filing, you'll find them. That's where you have to search sometime.
The ambulance is at the very back of there. On Chris's disaster relief, I don't know for certain if it's at the back of his, but Paul's is always at the back of his. Paul's, his permission to apply for grant should be in his report also. Are there any others in particular that you were? No, this is the only one that
Yeah. Okay, sir.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. For those of you I haven't met yet, I am Captain Leon Caesar. Unfortunately, Director Duke couldn't make it this evening. She is out of town tonight. In front of you is our monthly report for February of this year. And I will happily answer any questions that you may have.
Gentlemen, you have the report. Are there any questions that you may have or see? Commissioner Rather.
Pretty nervous.
Sir?
You pretty nervous doing this? Relax.
Yes, sir.
That's my only question.
Yes, sir.
Calm down.
Mr. Chairman, reviewing this report, everything looks fairly normal. I move to approve.
Okay, have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. I think I had Commissioner Gammon and Commissioner Gurley to make that second. If not, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Chirino?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you, Captain.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, now we have the Sheriff's Office report, budget worksheet. Time for the grand finale.
take the report first.
Report first, please.
It's pretty normal. I don't have any issues with the budget right now. I'm not going to promise that we won't, but as of right now, everything looks well. Population's staying pretty steady at about 660 to 680. COVID is 0, and we have no inmates with COVID at the time. 2 employees are out. We expect them back in the next week and a half.
That's some good news. Anything within the financial there that's out of the...
Not right now. I mean, I'll really review it in the next month, but we're doing well right now, I think.
Any questions, gentlemen?
There's a couple of items that doesn't look like we've spent any money to date. There's still 100% remaining. Is there any particular reason for that?
You're talking about?
One is like, I believe it's food prep. The other may be in...
You know, a lot of times I have to do that just anticipation. You know, if I don't use it, I don't use it. But if I don't have it, I might not have it somewhere else. And the kitchen is one of those areas where I never know. So I have to, every budget year, I have to think, okay, if I had to get this or I had to get this, I need something without pulling it from another line item. Food prep's one of them. We just did a PO for some money out of there on our dishwasher, which is commercial grade, on new racks. Believe it or not, that's like $5,000. So I try not to put a whole lot in there, but I also have to, if I could see the future, it would be perfect, but I can't. And I know that kitchen, how it's old and it's used every day, so.
Anyone else? Question? Mr. Gurley? No. We have a mayor.
Preble, can you give us an update on 3 things, money that came out of the governor's enhancement grant? Number 1, roof, any leaks, where we are on your generator. Number 3, the new fence.
The roof is great. We still are nervous every time it floods.
It rains.
Because we're so accustomed to it. We've had no leaks, and it's been great. The generator is going to start, I believe, the 1st of April. We're having to work out some issues about shutting down the power, but we're going to work it through.
You're talking about powering it up.
Right.
So it's not starting manufacture.
Sure.
The problem with the generator is here, basically. It's at the company where we're getting it from. One of the problems that's developed with it is we have now found out that they have to shut power down to the entire building for up to 2 hours if they get it back up. So we met.
Well, can you get the fence up first?
Well, this was news to us, and something I asked, why didn't you see this when you came around? Because that's why we asked you to come around and look at this. Coupled with that, what we have to do, of course, obviously we'd have to shut down, lock down the inmates for 2 hours. We have no power. And then the other problem I've got is our CAD system in dispatch would have to be taken completely down. We could move to 911, but the problem that we get is we operate back through our CAD system at the sheriff's office. If I lose power, I've lost the CAD. Also, all of our servers and everything would be completely shut down, which I'm not willing to do. So I've called them in. We had a meeting last week, and they're now in there evaluating where they can give us power to these critical locations while they take the generator and move it. There's a box they've got to change out, and that's the problem. That's where we are with that. You asked a question. I'll address if I can on CAD to CAD.
Yes, sir.
Where we are right now with CAD to CAD, there is testing that started on the virtual testing on the 18th of this month. There's some reconfigurations that had to be made because of EMS has a different requirement than what the police do and the fire. So there's those configurations, but the testing and virtual meetings and everything took place. We're looking towards probably the first week or second in April when that should be working, unless we run into some type of a problem.
Awesome.
But that's where we are. I'm trying to think what else we had. Fencing is on order, and we expect that hopefully by the end of this, well, first of next month, we'll start on that project.
Well, maybe the fence needs to go up before you shut the power down. You just let them out and roam around and have.
Oh, that's one of the things.
Take them out to recess or something.
Yeah, they came in.
Inside the fence.
Well, they came in on a Thursday and said, we want to do this on a Wednesday next week, and oh, by the way, we've got to shut all your power down. And I said, no, we're not going to do that. So that's kind of where we are with that right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Other questions? Motion to approve the report.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Gurley, do you have a second? Second. Commissioner Sereno, call the roll.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather? Chairman Reed?
Yes. Okay, I guess we're ready to go into the budget.
I would like to get your opinion on this. I have 5 budgets that basically we don't have we get the money, we have to appropriate the money. It's not taxpayer money. I'd like to do these 5 short budgets first,
Okay.
if that's okay.
You're driving this truck tonight.
Well, I'll let y'all know on your iPads, it's going to be called, or it's your 101, 21, 22, 101, and it's special patrols. Y'all, this is lake, or what we've always called lake duty. Corps of Engineer gives us, we're in the 2nd year of a contract, they're going to give us $49,000, $49,490. I appropriate that out for overtime, or they give us a rate for each deputy, and we put deputies on the lake, and they reimburse the county for this money. So that's your 54120 budget, and it's for that amount.
That's basically passed through.
The second one, of course, and the only reason why the sex offender registry is separate is because it creates revenue. So that's your 54160. The salary and everything is actually paid through our detective line item, but that amount total with all the salary and some, well, we don't even do the office supplies anymore, is $88,952. And again, this is something that's just set on the salary for the sex offender registry person. The third one is going to be our DEA account, or special purpose. And that will be your, that doesn't look right for some reason. Oh, it's 121-54110. We cannot budget this money, so what we do is put $20,000 in there, and in August I will come back to y'all and appropriate the line items at that time. And then you have our 122-54150, which is our drug enforcement. And again, this is not taxpayer money. I did set the line items up with Lisa this year, and that total amount is $438,000. And each of those line items will be equal to that. We do transfer $50,000 out of their account for overtime to go into general fund. So that's going to be what we call the transfer sheet. And Lisa usually does that in the course of the year. I think she did it last budget finance, I believe. She transferred that money in an amendment. So those are the 5 easy ones. I really think you can do it. I don't know. I don't know anything about that. So.
I think you could just make the motion to move those all to the budget committee, send those 5. I think, unless you have, yeah.
Right.
Unless you had changes or something in them.
I make a motion that we approve with a recommendation to send to the positive recommendation to budget the 5 funds that have been discussed.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second? Call the roll.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather? Chairman Reed?
Yes. Okay. Where do we go from here?
I'd like to do the jail budget first.
Yeah.
And I'll go with the jail budget summary on your iPad. We are asking, and in this budget, I've included 15 detention officers in this budget. With that said, this is going to be about a 1.3 million increase, or 6%. I've put down the salaries, that's 54%, operating costs is at 46%. The cost of the 15 officers, and I did include the benefits, is $810,645. What I would like to do is take 5 of these detention officers and put them in our holding facility at the judicial center. This will relieve our court officers, our judicial service people, from having to stay with, I think one day last week or the week before, we had 121 inmates down in that holding facility.
To clarify and understand that, the judicial officers are certified officers.
Yes, they are. And
the
so
detention officers are only detention certified.
Right.
So we would be spending less money in the long run if we go about this.
Going to allow them to do their job, which is secure the top half of the courthouse.
Their job should be secure.
In the courtrooms, right. And then, that will also, when I try to ask for people, I try to get people that's going to alleviate several issues, be it transport. This will alleviate some transport issues of even the transport officers having to stay with them, judicial services, and they will report there every day and work there just like they would the jail. So out of the 15, we would only have 10 new officers at the SO as far as detention is concerned. The other thing is part-time, and this is one of those that I'm taking from here over on the sheriff's side, and I'm putting it on the jail budget. We have a lot of luck with our part-time people because a lot of them have been law enforcement career. And our civil and criminal warrants unit is, because of the extraditions and stuff, we're really struggling to keep up with that. And 2 of those part-time people would be to assist with going and picking up prisoners from other states, even in Tennessee, and bringing them back. The number looks big, but I'm decreasing that out of the sheriff's side. The school guards are getting large, and I want to keep them in one budget, and that would be on the sheriff's side. I mean, they're at $537,000 right now. And I'm just trying to keep my part-time separate from the school crossing guards because it can get confusing. So that, again, I'm really only getting three more additional. I'm just moving them over into the jail side of the current 3 we have, so I'll have 6. And I laid it out on where we're going to put them. As far as the line items, if you see red, that's a decrease. And as you can see on the second page, when you start in office supplies are $435, all the way down, that's a lot of red. So I've tried to do the best I could to anticipate. I feel like our utilities is going well with the water decreasing, and I did decrease that. I'm moving money out of building improvements, and I'm putting some of that back into maintenance and repair because that's where we have the issues with that building is repairing problems. So when it comes to operating, I really haven't gone up from last year at all. It's my salaries that are going up, and that's really the brunt of my increase in that budget. And we generate, just to say, about 4.4 million in that jail. So you can do the math, and we're not fully supporting it, but we're doing half.
Let me ask a question, Chief. And I know you've been there a long time, just like I have. The question is, what is School Patrol, what do they make an hour on average? I know they're part-time.
$19 an hour.
$19 what?
$19 an hour, and they're 4 hours a day.
Okay. And then what are your part-time, I think you're talking about detention people and all that. What are they going to make an hour?
We do a minimum of 13, and actually I did not even know this till a couple of years ago. Depending on what they did, like we have one that was 36-year officer with the city. He's still working for us. They moved him up to 23 because he's working, his 24, and he's been there 3 or 4 years now. So I leave that up to Sonia to determine. Clerking, like the NCIC, I figure 13, and I've been pretty much guessing right when Sonia looks at it for a clerk's position, about $13 an hour.
Right. I know you don't have any control over that, so I'm not calling you on that at all, Preble. But when you have experienced people come in, and I'm not even comparing it to School Patrol because it's hard to employ these people, I know, to get them out there to work. You're going to have to pay them a little bit. But when you get an experienced officer, whether he's been on patrol or detention or anything like that, and I'm glad to hear it's higher, but I think we should pay, personally, I think we should pay for their experience. And I'm not trying to pull money out of the hat or anything, but that's been one of the problems is, in the past, it's been 10, 13 or whatever. But the kicker is, I think the average hourly salary for a full-time employee is not a whole lot more than that sometimes. But I just like if you got some people coming in, because it saves the county money. You're not paying benefits and everything, but also if you're pre-65, you got to pay for your insurance if you're a county employee, and that's not cheap. That's not cheap at all. Average is like $500 something a month just for a single coverage. So I'm just saying it saves a lot of money. If you can the state does an awesome job of paying who you are and what you're worth. They look at everything. So, and I'm in no way putting this on your back. I'm just saying I want to see Sonia, and I know she can look at it, and I know it's going to cost money, but I wish we could pay our part-time people who we're going back and asking them to come back in, even if it's past detectives coming in, to pay them a little better. Pay them a little better.
For the civil or the extradition people, you're going to start them at around 17, okay? Every year they work, apparently they go up. And me and Sonia and we get together and we adjust the part-time according to how many years they've been with us, and then it's based more along that salary range.
Well, and that's a good thing. That's good. I'm glad y'all are looking at that way. I just think, you know, if we're going to get that experience, if somebody's put that much time in, that really knows the system, we ought to pay them. We ought to pay them, just like we do our other deputies and employees. Enough said. Sorry.
Okay. Mayor, have you looked at these, or?
I have, Mr. Chairman. Of course, it's a very large budget. A lot of increases. Probably looking at the jail budget, I'm going back on some of my notes. I had scratched out one maintenance.
We scratched it. That's something we agreed on.
Okay. One maintenance, one ADA preventive maintenance officer agreed to scratch that. 2 sergeants, one perform inmate investigations and other administrative issues concerning inmates and employees. That was 134. We scratched that. Giving you 10 out of 14 was my recommendation, Mr. Chairman. They had requested 14 positions, and I'd recommended 10. They agreed. The sheriff agreed with that. Am I correct?
15?
10 out of 14. That's what I had.
But you ended up giving us 15.
Okay.
I think it was 15 plus the additional people I was asking for.
If we cut this.
Right.
Okay.
And
To answer your question, yes.
Worked out with the captain or chief flies that we're allowing a lot more work done on weekends outside, and we're pulling some officers to go out with them. So we're not trying to do everything during the week. Sure. You know, our mowing and all this other stuff, we're trying to do it more on the weekends. So,
yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, at the beginning of this process, we asked all the departments, not knowing where we were going to be, lost of hotel motel tax, coronavirus, what an effect it was going to have on our sales tax, et cetera. So I had asked every department to try to keep it as flat as possible. This is one department that the sheriff was willing to make some concessions, make some cuts when I asked him to make cuts. But this is a department that crime continues to grow with our growth, and we need people on the streets. We're into our second year of our lease program with our vehicles, hopefully saving money there. We've got 30 that are on order. We got the sheriff to delay from going with a higher price with Ford Explorers, so we went with the Durango, and they weren't starting the production on that until February, so that actually gave another gap in not getting these new vehicles. We should have those in by when?
May, hopefully.
By May. Okay, so we got. And
May, 1st of June, hopefully.
So we'll get those all equipped, and then shortly after that, we'll get another 30 requests into this third year budget. But these are things that they needed. We've been able to provide. Thank goodness we had some grants: the generator, the roof, the capital, new kitchen floor, new laundry mat. We've been able to do a lot. With some grant money, but it's not just capital needs, not one-time non-recurring dollars we're able to get by with, but we need some recurring dollars to pay for positions.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, we're growing. We've asked, this is starting my 7th year on public safety. We've asked the last couple of years to run lean, for the Sheriff's Department to run lean. They've ran lean, and I think I fully support this increase because, one of the things, it's getting more and more difficult to find an individual that wants to go into law enforcement to start with. To the competition right now in terms of being able to make more money. So it takes a person who's dedicated to the job, whether it's corrections or patrol or a school resource officer or a crossing guard. So we've got to provide the necessary manpower so those people are not overworked. The same thing's true with EMS and so on. If you have to work 60 hours a week, and most of them probably do anyway, but if you have to work, you can't take off a day because there's not enough people, then that hurts morale and so on. So we've got to provide the manpower. So I fully support this.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Phillips.
First, I'd like to second what Commissioner Gurley said, but let me rattle on for a minute. Our county is growing at a clip that probably exceeds 4% a year. And just add that up over a 10-year period of time, 20-year period of time, and the math scares me to death. We, last year, 6-7 months ago, presented a resolution to our entire safety personnel, including the sheriff's departments, and commended them for the job that they're doing. We spend $50, $60 to $75 million to build a new school, but that's a small amount of money compared to staffing those schools and running those schools. So every time we build a new school, we spend $3 million plus bucks a year just to staff that school and new personnel. I, for one, am sick and tired of penny pinching when it comes to the public safety. You see cities across the nation defunding the police. We've spent a lot of time last year commending our public safety department. The sheriff's department is close to the top of that, if not at the top of that. So once again, I'm tired of penny pinching. This 6% increase, according to the growth that we've had, is, in my mind, a small amount to pay. And if we've not had an opportunity to support them physically, this is the way that we need to support our public servants. And in my mind, they do protect and serve, and they're there. Their presence is important to me, to my family, and I think to every citizen in Rutherford County. I move to budget and forward it on to our budget committee with a positive recommendation.
I'll second that.
We have a motion to approve and pass it on to budget, and a second. Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Just a quick question for Preble. What is your population? What population are you basing your budgets on this year?
For inmates?
Prison. Yes, inmate population.
I think here in April, May, we'll start going up. I believe it'll be back to 850 in 800 at least in, 5 to 6 months. Would you not say, Sheriff?
In the next 4 months.
You'll start seeing it go up.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Let me throw this in, and I can say this with knowledge, and they're doing everything they can with what they got, but they still have seats that are not filled. Even if you were down to 550, they need not one person less than they have now and more, to be honest. And that's kind of sometimes a trick to try to figure out. But when you look at the needs and you look at the hours per day a person has to be there, I mean, you're looking at 4.7 people in every seat. And they still have seats that are not filled on shifts, and you cannot provide security with cameras alone. And I know that Chief Acton knows that, and I know the sheriff knows that. So I'm just saying you can't always go by numbers. I remember back when we got down, they said, well, can we employ or hire less correctional officers? And absolutely not, you cannot. That jail originally, and I'm going to be careful how I say this, but that jail was staffed and maintained and statistically with a lot less prisoners than was set. I mean, originally you had 550 beds that were built. You added on, like, I think 900 and maybe 73 or so. Preble can correct that. But we added double bunks in back in the day. So Tennessee Correctional Institute has bowed their head to allow that. So that's all I'm going to say to that.
Well, the reason that I'm asking is, you know, some of this stuff may be a hard sell when we get into budget, and I want a good answer for it. Excuse me, I'm having a little trouble talking, but the trouble that I see with the jail system that we've got, and also our EMS, is we don't pay our folks enough, and we can't retrain them, and we cannot hire people because they're not going to come in for the low wage that we're offering. I think what I'd rather see in the budget was increases for these officers, and that's the thing that's concerning me about this budget. You know, I'd rather see that than some of this other increase. You know, I'm not disputing how many people we need. I've seen the statistics myself, and I've seen how thinly manned we can be. And, you know, it's not a good situation, but the main thing I see is retention, and not only in the sheriff's department, but I know EMS is bleeding. So that's something that I want to look at.
Commissioner P., you're right on the money. And we've always been short of personnel there, and most definitely we need to pay better to these employees. They deserve it. All public safety employees do, and you know, on the angle we're looking at it. But I gotta say, you're right on the money, 100%. But if they realistically looked at what they really need, and I'm not talking about a perfect world again that I mentioned earlier, when you do these staffing analysis, they probably need 30 or more people right now if you had the perfect world scenario, and that's not going to happen. We know that, and I definitely know that there's other commissioners agree with that, but I wish we could. I mean, I'm for one, but you're on the money. I appreciate that thought.
Thank you. That's all.
Further discussion?
Could I say something back to Mr. P. real quick?
You'll say something back?
Yes, sir. Commissioner P.?
Yes.
I agree with you, but as long as public safety is tied to the salary system of the whole county, you know, if the county gets an increase, we get an increase. But it has to be tied, you know, we're tied to the rest of the county offices. So I can't separate, I can't say I want a 6%. If we're tied in with everyone else, that means everyone else must be given some increase themselves. So I agree with what you're saying, but there's an issue there with us being tied to the same salary increases as the whole county.
Well, I understand what you're saying there. You know, the answer to that is to have our HR department look into that. And the reason I say that, I mean, I think just I happen to know some figures, you know, like Williamson County, I think they're starting their people off about 10,000 more than what we're topping our people out at. So we're bleeding.
Oh, I agree.
We're losing people, and it's not just EMS, it's, you know, your group there. I mean, when you're not able to fill positions, there's definitely something wrong, because there's people out there that want to work, but they're being offered better positions and more money elsewhere.
Commissioner P., I'd like to challenge you to work with HR and come up with a recommendation for this, because I fully agree, having worked in public safety 27 years out of my life, and having worked in the corporate world for about 15, there was no comparison, and it is, you know, it's something that needs to be looked at. So I think that's a very good thing to be looked at, and to get HR to study, because you know, it's a whole different world when you're out there. So I would encourage you, and anything I can do to help you, I'm willing to do. But I really truly think you brought up a good point. We need to look at how our public safety people are paid and how we're going to keep them, and that's more than just going by comparing them to a day laborer out here. They don't face the same challenges, I can guarantee you. Thank you.
Our HR director recently brought us a study and was very thorough with that. However, I think either things are changing so much more rapidly because, we're losing out in this foot race to hold on to our good employees or even to be able to hire more. So, maybe we do need to ask her to look at that again.
No, I think since she works for us, we can tell her to look at that.
I concur.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Okay, the second will be of course, the big one, the sheriff's office budget. We actually did a little better than I thought at a 4.5 increase after going through everything with the mayor, and we did give in on some people. But at this time, because of our school situations and stuff, we need to replace our sergeants. The sergeants and the SROs need to be out and in schools when other officers are absent. And right now, our sergeants are actually in the schools. I mean, they're assigned, basically they're working the same school because either we have too many out or COVID's been a big issue. But we need to get the SROs where the sergeants are just floating and being able to go and take care of things when officers are in court and not assigned a school. We're only down one right now, I believe, SROs. Okay, 7 in training. But, so 6 of these deputies would be assigned to schools. We're getting a new school in August, so that's an automatic SRO. 3 patrol officers, I'm not going to say they can be certified or not. We'll certify them if we hire them and they're not certified. And then the big one is the 1 narcotics detective to assist with the overdose cases we're having, which are a daily thing for us. And of course, if somebody dies from an overdose, it has to be investigated as an overdose death. And right now, we only have 1, and it's getting a little overwhelming. So these are the 11 that the mayor, out of 20, I think I was asking for 15 patrolmen. So or 15 people, and we narrowed it down to this. So I've only got cut 4. So that should be an increase there. It's approximately $715,000, 716.
Can I input?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion. We add an additional detective on the overdose case. To be honest, that's not that much money, and it's extremely important. I find it important, and I think we really need to charge after this and really take a foothold in going after this. We're giving 100% support from public safety, but I think you need an additional. I'd like to see you get an additional, and I know you're trying to hold your budget down, but it's worth every dime we'd spend to add this other person in.
Yeah, I think where Virgil's coming from, and where, these detectives, we're looking at it from a medical side as to what caused it, but we're also looking at it, where did they get this stuff from? Where is it coming from?
That's what
you're looking at. That's what we need to know.
And
because
we are
want
actually
to
charging a lot. And
right.
I think if y'all got on our Facebook, one of our officers, Lieutenant Will Houghton, was commended and given an award from the U.S.
For every
DA's
overdose,
office, so-
there's potential multiple more. And the sooner we can get to where that came from and deal with it, then the fewer overdoses we're going to have. So if we're able to
I
do...
don't ever want to say we're going to have fewer overdoses. What we need to do
That's
is
the
work it
idea.
and
We're going
charge
to,
them.
but hopefully we can save someone. Instead of increasing, which it's doing now exponentially, we can, there's always going to be overdoses.
Right.
But
That's all I can do.
it's been that way since,
Right.
for I can remember, which goes back into the 70s. But if we can level that out, then we can save some lives. And like I said, if we cut the supply off, if we find out where it's coming from, you know. So I agree with Virgil.
I'm going to have to leave that up to you all. If you want to add someone.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to ask, between you and commissioners, add this person in. We need to know who's killing our children. We need to know.
I don't object, Commissioner. You know, I think there's an ad hoc committee that's been formed and steering to look at overdoses with Commissioner Harris. Look at the problem that this county is facing. I don't object to your request, Commissioner.
What you're saying is rather than one, make it two?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Means your budget to two instead of one detective?
That is correct.
That really will not affect this budget, the 101 budget. It will affect, or we'll have to go back and increase the drug fund budget, but that's not tax-based, so I will have to add some numbers to that budget.
Well, you could send it on to
Right.
budget with a positive recommendation and then be prepared at budget to have those numbers completed.
Have those numbers completed by the time you go with the
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve 12 new positions. We send this to budget with the recommendation for 12 new positions as stated with the positive recommendation. And I assume Commissioner Gammon will second.
Second.
Got the second. Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorley?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Finish with the increases? Or are we done? Okay.
If you can, you have the floor.
Well, okay, we have the people. What I've done this year is on the very right side of this budget sheet. I've shown you per officer how one line item will go up. So if I'm getting, this would all come out 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 officers in this budget. If I get all those, this line item will increase, and I've put that already in the budget, okay? But if I take one away, then it will decrease by this amount. In the past, I've had an issue where I get approved people, but my line items didn't go up, and I have a hard time, you know, paying training and stuff because of those officers. So when you see my increases, basically they're all pertaining to the officers I'm getting. Training, 17,000, not so much the officer, but they've increased our training hours, which will cost more. So for 17,000, that's not bad when you look at 239 certified officers. Data processing is an ARC server system that protects our email and our backup system. It's 86. If it wasn't for this one system, I would actually be decreasing for the first time ever my data processing. There might be something we can do with this, but the total cost is $86,000. I'm only increasing it by $75,000, so I am using some of the money that's already in my budget, even for next year. Uniforms will be $40,000. We have 7 new officers coming in. It's taken us anywhere from 1 to 2 months to even get our uniforms now. We don't even know where they're coming from half the time. They have increased cost, probably around 2%. So that's for what we're getting. That's not bad, 40% or $40,000. Increase in data processing equipment is not bad at all. I have 7 old utility Atlas systems, which means I still have to keep up with their information, the servers. So if I get rid of those and put the new GTACs in, we can completely be rid of Atlas, and we can get rid of that cost as far as backing up the cameras and things like that. So the increases for what we want to do, I don't believe is very significant at all in our operating. It will always be salaries where our budget lies. And it's 84. Salaries are 84% of this budget.
Any other questions? Okay. I'm going to ask for a motion made for approval of the entire budget of the Sheriff's Department with a positive recommendation, if we could.
I make the motion.
Okay. Send on the budget. Have a second?
I thought that's what we were approving a minute ago, was the entire budget, but
this is just an
but
overall
I'll second
approval all the
that.
way through with the changes. Call a roll.
Mr. P?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Sereno?
Yes.
Mr. Gammon?
Yes.
Mr. Gurley?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Okay.
All right, thank you. Thanks for the kind word.
Mayor?
Sir, I'm good.
Okay. If that is it, any other business? If not, I move that we adjourn.